time this morning to be as efficient as we can. Please remember that this meeting is being live streamed on the State Bar's YouTube channel, and conduct yourselves accordingly, please. And I will start with the reading of the advisory statement. Members of the council are hereby advised of their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before the council with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance thereof. Please note your conflict, if any, at the appropriate time. At this moment, I will recognize our Vice President, Kathleen Fry, for a moment of reflection.
Thank you, Todd. So thank you all for allowing me to do these moments of reflection. I know some people will pray and some people will just set their intention for the day, but I'd like to let everyone start this meeting with, I sometimes hate to say I found this on the internet. Hopefully it's from Mother Teresa, but I think this quote should set our intention for today, which is, I can do things that you cannot, and you can do things that I cannot, but together we can do great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We have several special guests that we would like to recognize at this time. First, I will start with Chief Justice Paul Newby's here. Welcome. Liz Henderson Masper is here with the Chief Justice, his Chief of Staff. Liz, there she is. I understand that Lucy Harold is here, who is the Special Assistant to the Chief Justice. She's in the back. I understand that NCBA President Patty Ramsour is here. Is that right? Hi, Patty. And the NCBA Executive Director, Jason Hensley, is here. Jason, good morning. Are there any other guests that I failed to recognize, special guests? We'll have a DSA presentation. I'll recognize some guests at that point. All right, seeing none. All right, at this time then, I will recognize Mr. Chief Justice to give us his remarks.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I've been on the court 20 years, and we had an attorney get us to argue, and the attorney was standing here and leaning over, trying to talk like that, and I actually interrupted the attorney and said, "Do you mind moving over just a little bit so you can be correct with the lectern?" And that happened, and then we could all hear, so it was good. It was good. I guess it would be 249 years ago. I was a small child. I remember April the 19th. The British King George did the unthinkable. He sent his soldiers to kill his citizens. Despite the fact that the American colonies had sent multiple folks to reason with Parliament and the King, asking simply that their fundamental rights as colonists be recognized. And he refused to do that. Went and sent that group, those soldiers, to the battles of Lexington and Concord. Having received a text message immediately, the folks in Mecklenburg County, actually it wasn't a text message, obviously, it was May the 20th, check our state flag, top yellow ribbon, May 20th of 1775. The folks in Mecklenburg County got together and they said, no king that we would pay allegiance to would treat us this way. They declared independence. as David Allen will demonstrate, Mecklenburg County has been independent ever since. The Met Day. I just finished a book called Who's Your Founding Father by a guy named David Fleming, and he makes a compelling case for the authenticity of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. April 12th, 1776 is our bottom yellow ribbon, Halifax Resolves. That's when the General Assembly met and instructed our delegates at the Continental Congress to vote for independence, to support independence. That being the first state legislature to do so. And it falls on our shoulders to ensure that all are treated with the dignity and respect, because we're created equal and endowed with inalienable rights of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the fruits of our own labor. For those things we need to be grateful, and for those things we need to be diligent. Have you ever received, just out of the blue, a compliment to your staff or about your staff, and how that makes you so grateful for their hard work? And it reminds you that, hey, I need to be a little bit more faithful in encouraging folks. I got this letter this week. He says his name. He says, for the past 18 months, I've served as an executor of an estate in Transylvania County. Those of you that don't know your North Carolina geography, that would be Brevard. Those of you that really don't know your North Carolina geography, that'd be in the southwestern portion of North Carolina. I can't help you more than that. I accepted this job knowing full well that I would be forced to spend a fair amount of time dealing with government employees that I would encounter during the probate process to become an executor. I certainly was not looking forward to this part of my duties. However, I want you to know that right from the very first day of entering the Transylvania County Courthouse, being greeted by the elected clerk, Christy Brown, and her staff, all my preconceived notions surrounding the work ethic, attitudes, knowledge, and helpfulness about government employees has been changed. Everyone was kind, polite, and efficient. I simply cannot say how grateful I am for this process. Folks, I'm proud of that staff in Transylvania County. I will assure you that Clerk Brown and her staff will get lots of recognition, because one person took the time to let me know of this, what they thought, extraordinary encounter of a great deal of time and energy in preparing for the mock trials, and parents, as kids talk about what they're doing, they learn about hearsay and evidence and what can be admitted and what's not. And frankly, the jury system and how vital that is. So that's a great program. Again, working to see what other educational opportunities may be out there. President Todd Brown is convening a group of some of the managing partners of the largest law firms to hear more about mock trial and civic education in North Carolina. Legal deserts continue to be a major concern. Again, we're making some progress through IOLTA and their grant and the Chief Justice Commission on Professionalism and its grants. We are sending a whole group of law students this summer into rural areas to experience practice in those areas and hopefully begin to put down roots and see the advantages of being kind of the Atticus Finch in those communities, to immediately, upon graduation, go back to these communities and make a difference in the lives of the folks in those communities. We appreciate past President Marcy Armstrong and her leadership with that, as well as ongoing leadership with President Brown as we continue to look to see what things we can do. I need y'all to be my eyes and ears as you see things that we need to address from my perspective as the head of the judicial branch. Please let me know. Talk to me, talk to my staff. We do want to be sure that everyone is receiving justice without favor and denial and delay. Thanks.
It now gives me great pleasure to present the State Bar's Distinguished Service Award. I have done several of these in my time, and they're all excellent. It's our award, and I want to present it today to the family of the Honorable Shirley L. Fulton from Mecklenburg County. Her family, members of her family are here, and I want to recognize them and ask them to stand, and then we will proceed with the presentation of the award. First, Kevin Good, Judge Fulton's son, is here in the back. Welcome. Ginger Good is Kevin's wife and Judge Fulton's daughter-in-law is here. Thank you. Good morning. Rochelle Fulton. I got it, yeah, I got it in two places. All right, excuse me. Rosalind Fulton Hayes is here, Judge Fulton's aunt. Welcome. And then Rosalind's daughter, Alicia Hayes, is here. Good morning, welcome. All right, great. All right. I'll proceed with the award. The North Carolina State Bar's John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award Program honors members of the State Bar who have demonstrated exemplary service to the legal profession. Such service may be evidenced by a commitment to the principles and the goals stated in the preamble to the North Carolina Rules of Conduct, which govern us all. The preamble, as we know and need to be reminded, provides that a lawyer as a member of the legal profession is not only a representative of clients, but is also an officer of the legal system and a public citizen having special responsibilities for the quality of justice. It is a lawyer's responsibility to seek improvement of the law access to the legal system, the administration of justice, and the quality of service rendered by the legal profession. A lawyer should cultivate knowledge of the law beyond its use for clients, employ that knowledge in the reform of the law, and work to strengthen legal education. In addition, a lawyer should further the public's understanding of and confidence in the rule of law and the justice system. It is a lawyer's responsibility to devote time to mentor the next generation of lawyers and to promote diversity and diverse participation within the legal profession. Our preamble further states that a lawyer should be mindful of deficiencies in the administration of justice and of the fact that the poor and sometimes persons who are not poor cannot afford adequate legal assistance. A lawyer therefore should devote professional time and resources and provide civic leadership to ensure equal access to our system of justice for all of those who, because of economic or social barriers, cannot afford or secure adequate legal counsel. Lawyers are therefore expected to provide legal services at no fee or at a reduced fee to persons of limited means or to public service or charitable groups or organizations, society, the legal profession, or the legal system or the legal profession, and provide financial support for organizations that provide legal services to persons of limited means. It is the basic obligation of a lawyer to provide community service, community leadership, and public interest legal services in areas such as poverty law, civil rights, public rights law, representing charitable organizations, and the administration of justice generally. Many of our professional responsibilities are indeed prescribed by the rules of professional conduct, but a lawyer is also guided by personal conscience. A lawyer should strive to attain the highest level of skill to improve the law and legal profession and to exemplify the legal profession's ideals of public service. The John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award is the only award presented by the State Bar Council, by us. It represents statewide recognition of the service the recipient has given to the legal profession and their community. While most nominees are recommended by their local bars, that nomination must first be approved by the State Bar's Distinguished Service Committee, then by the State Bar's Executive Committee, and then by this council. We have done that. And so on behalf of the State Bar, I would certainly like to give thanks for Judge Fulton and thanks to, and extend my thanks to members of her family who are here today for Judge Fulton's service to her community, our legal profession, and most importantly to the citizens of the state of North Carolina. And so with that, I would like to recognize Councilman George Langler and ask him to come up and share with you some of the many ways in which Judge Fulton committed her professional and personal lives to upholding the principles of and aspiring to the goals in the preamble of our rules of our professional conduct, and to present the State Bar's Distinguished Service Award to Judge Fulton's family in due course. George.
Thank you. You're honored to be. Having been a criminal practitioner, I would never have to appear in front of Todd Brown. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Harlan. This is my third year on council. And I can tell you, after 43 years, this has been the highlight of my legal career to be here. This is where the rubber meets the road, and I think everybody here probably shares that same view. When President Armstrong appointed me to the Distinguished Service Committee, I had no idea who John B. McMillan was. The only McMillan I knew was Judge Jimmy McMillan from a federal district court in Charlotte. So I got to looking at it and I thought, okay, it's a warm, savage committee, which means what? It's going to be entertaining. It's also going to be a feel-good committee because of what we do. And that's a perfect time to be in the Distinguished Service Committee because on Thursday mornings we have grievance committee. And you get the good and the bad, okay? So it's kind of a good way to walk out there on Thursday saying you've seen the good and the bad. So to find out about the John McMillan Award, I was down in the Warriors Lounge downstairs, the Members Lounge, because we have breaks. There is a piece of art down there that's got every member's name in a little block down there. And since 2022, the bar has given 115 members of the bar the John B. McMillan Award. Warriors don't do math well, but the math I did, Warriors have a 0.0004 chance of getting the John B. McMillan Award. And if you look at who's on that list, Roger and Wade Smith, Mickey Michaud, Jim Ferguson, Alan Head, whose wife Patty is here to carry on his tradition. It is a who's who of Warriors. And as President Brown said, it is an extraordinary award. This is not a participation award. This is not your kid's soccer game, t-ball game, everybody gets a trophy. It is an award that the recipient has earned through the years of service. So when I sat down and I looked at the list, I thought, why hadn't Shirley Fulton been nominated? So we proceeded with the nomination, and Suzanne Lever is the gatekeeper of that group, and she was great to work with. We got recommendations from Peter Gilchrist, again, a past John B. McMillan Award winner, Jim Ferguson, Carl Archie, Val Lyles, the mayor of Charlotte. It was a who's who of people statewide who knew and recommended Judge Fulton. So we proceeded to go through the process, and to tell you about Shirley, Shirley Fulton was born in Kingstree, South Carolina. Anybody know where that is? Okay, it's Williamsburg County. Okay, where's that? Okay. It is 75 miles from Charleston. It is an extremely rural county. The population varies from 2,500 to 3,500 over the years. It is 80% African American. And Shirley grew up on a farm. She planted tobacco. She picked tobacco. She was 2 of 5 children. And if any of you remember in October when we were here and heard President Brown's speech about where he was, how he got to here, it's an inspiring story, and her story parrots that. Think about it. This is a little girl who grew up on a cotton tobacco farm in rural, poor South Carolina and graduated from Duke University Law School. You know, FanDuel was here in North Carolina. Now, who would have bet that would have happened? You know who would have. But she defied all the odds. And she grew up on this farm, and as we said, she did farm work, hard work. And she had a mentor in Kingstree, South Carolina, named Vernon Dimitri. He won a funeral home there. Took Shirley under her wing and gave her a dictionary. Why is that important? Well, she read it from A to Z. At age 16, she entered North Carolina A&T University. Folks, she was a child at age 16. Think about that. In the mid-70s, she enters Greensboro, North Carolina, young African-American child. Think about what she had to endure to do that. So incredible. She graduated from North Carolina A&T University and entered North Carolina Central Law School and stayed for a year and transferred to Duke, where she graduated in her class. After Shirley's passing, her son Kevin was interviewed by the Charlotte Observer, and here's what he said. While she was attending classes, I was playing video games in the student union with the students. I played Space Invaders, telling my mom, she'll pay you back, let me borrow some money. She was my first superhero, he said. The other kids were talking about Wonder Woman and the $1 Million Man. She says, Mom was my hero. The possibility of her making it where she got is outstanding. She had an amazing ability to give when she had nothing left. She used to tell me, live your life, do your best. Mom was the best, even when times were hard. You know, we've all had trials and tribulations in our life. Imagine what that family went through so she could get from where she was to where she ended up. It's an amazing, it's a lifetime story, okay? Literally. So, in law school, Kevin did, it was a family experience. Kevin was there in law school. She graduated from Duke University. She was hired by Peter Gilchrist in 1981 as the first African-American female prosecutor in his office. The first African-American prosecutor was Calvin Murphy, who's now on the Board of Law Examiners. And she thrived as a DA. Evan Rawls, my good friend, and I've tried cases against Shirley. She was a prosecutor's, she was a defense lawyer's nightmare. And here's why, okay? She had the credibility, and she followed the prosecutor's creed. I know there are several members of our 61 group council that are prosecutors, and I think that would, you guys would probably hold this mantra true. Prosecutors don't just need to get convictions. They need to do what's right and what's fair. And that's what Shirley did, but boy, she wasn't afraid to try a case. And she was quiet. She wasn't the deal type, okay? She didn't bang on the table. She didn't yell at people. She had that voice. She could speak to people. And picking a jury with Shirley was horrific because they loved her. Then the lawyer gets up there and says, well, you know, don't mind all that. No, she was great in front of the jury because she could talk to people. That was her greatest gift. And as a prosecutor, she thrived. And in 1987, she was appointed to the district court bench by Governor Jim Martin. Why is that important? This is heresy right now if a Republican appoints a Democrat to the bench, okay? But he appointed her to the bench because he grew up in Mecklenburg County. He knew Shirley's qualifications, and he appointed her to the the district court bench. A year later, she ran for Superior Court and won. And for 14 years, she was our senior resident Superior Court judge. That's got to be the hardest job in the system, riding her over a bunch of other judges, the courthouse staff, the clerk's office. But she did it with grace. She did it in integrity. She survived 2 bouts of breast cancer during this period of time. One time, the doctor told her, go to get your affairs in order. So what she did, she came back and held court the next week. She recognized a need as a Superior Court judge that many of us still have problems with now. Many counties on Monday morning, if you're a criminal lawyer, you have a calendar call on Monday morning. The DA puts 500 cases on the calendar. 500 defendants have to show up. They want to try 5 that week. If the client doesn't show up, they issue warrants for their arrest. Shirley saw that, and she put a stop to it. It was called the Fulton Plan, and it is still in effect in Mecklenburg County. Because she recognized the need that when defendants have to come to court, they have to get off work, find parking, find transportation, find child care. And she saw that was an inequity in the system. And the Observer quoted her about this very issue. She says, as lawyers, we're the single most important route to equality and equity. And she lived it, and she breathed it when she was the senior resident Superior Court judge in Charlotte. She retired from the bench in 2002 and helped found the law firm now known as Walker. I think it's now Walker 10. It used to be Walker 4. We have offices in several cities in Charlotte. She started a very, very aggressive alternative dispute resolution seminar program there because she knew as a Superior Court judge holding court in the western part of the state, you don't need to go to court to handle your case. You can handle it other ways. So this alternative dispute resolution program she started was obviously very successful. She was appointed to the Evergreen Fund. She was past president of the Mecklenburg Bar. In her spare time, she was chairman of United Way. She also was president of the Queen City Congress, which helped try to find housing for low-income folks. Charlotte has a real bad housing problem, and she found real issues in that area and tried to find housing for people that need it the most. She started a Spanish immersion program in a high school when kids were showing up. Now keep in mind, this is 2003, 2004. We didn't have bilingual instructors in high schools like we do now, and interpreters in the courthouse. She helped strive that and helped fund that and helped make sure that got off the ground. She died in 14 months ago of cancer. And before she died, a lot of our judges and court personnel went to see Shirley. And to a person, man, woman, clerk, bailiff, whoever, they all came out saying, I was there to see her and comfort her. And she comforted me. Because that's the type of person Shirley Fulton was. She was a true pioneer. She was a fabulous lawyer. She was a trailblazer for many people in this room and across the state bar. And Mr. President, I would ask that you come around and present the award to Kevin's family, posthumously to her, on behalf of the 61 members in all 43 counties of this bar, to the Honorable Shirley L. Fulton.
A couple words. Mike is yours.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to say. I just want to say that, first of all, my mother truly, truly loved working in the legal profession. I mean, it was her passion. And also, the last thing, and then I'll be quick, the last thing I'll say is she wanted me to say thank you. So thank you very much for making all this possible. I really appreciate it.
We shall now proceed with the agenda. Next, I would like to recognize the President of the North Carolina Bar Association, Patty Ramsor, to come up and give us some remarks.
Thank you, President Brown. It's an honor to be here as I start. Was introduced earlier, Jason Hensley. Very thankful to have all his. That's a lot of notes for 2 minutes of comments, but he knows me well enough. At this point to know why I have these. There's just so much going on in the association and the foundation, and I'm proud of all the work that we're doing. Last Friday, we had the opportunity to hold our spring quarterly meeting. Really crazy to believe that we are already at this point in the bar year. Despite having to navigate through both of our boards did convene in Rolling Rock last Friday for a really great meeting. And part of this is there's some meetings, and you all know, you go into it, and sometimes it's some very serious things you have to deal with, and sometimes it's just the good stuff. And you hear all about the great work that's being done in our profession and all the members of our community who are being served. So I do want to share some of that good information and good news with you all this morning. Back in January, at your meeting, I had an opportunity to share a little bit about our Open Door Fellowship Program. As you all may remember, this is a program that was started last year, so this summer will be our second year with the Open Door Fellows. This is a great example of the commitment of the North Carolina Bar Association and Foundation to encouraging diversity and supporting our law students who come from diverse backgrounds. Just as a quick reminder, as you all may recall, our Open Door Fellows program focuses on first-year law students in North Carolina who are from historically excluded or disadvantaged backgrounds, who are first-generation college students, and are from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. Our foundation just selected our 2 new fellows for 2024. They will have an opportunity this summer to participate in a 10-week program where they get to intern with some of our members. The 10-week program is fully funded by the foundation and donors like you all who give to the foundation so generously. The fellows not only get to work for 10 weeks with a couple of our members, but they also get to really get immersed in the association and participate in professional development, get to network with our members, and so it's a really unique experience, I think, that they get to do through the foundation. Our 2 fellows for this summer are April Franklin. She is a 1L at Elon, and she will be spending her 10 weeks with Gerald Walden at the Fresh Market. I know many of you are familiar with Gerald, and will not be surprised that he stepped up to host, I see some nods back there, that he stepped up to host our intern, and I think that will be a special experience for April to get to do that. Our second fellow is Darius Alexander. Darius is a 1L at Chapel Hill. He will have the opportunity to work with Rebecca Smitherman at Craig Jenkins in Winston. You all may know Rebecca. If you've been to any association meeting, pro bono event, anything where we've asked for a volunteer, you've probably seen Rebecca there. So we are thrilled to have Darius have the opportunity to work with Rebecca and just have the opportunity to participate in our NCBA activities this summer. One of our really special initiatives that started this year, it was in the discussion phase last year, relates to the creation of a judicial learning center. You all heard Justice Newby mention Ray Wilson earlier, who has been involved with so many civic education activities, and we're just thankful when we have members like Gray who come forward and say, we see a real need, and we think our students need more education about the role of our judiciary and the importance, the independent rule of law. And so Gray came forward with this idea last year to have President Clayton Morgan, and has been running with this ever since. So Gray is chairing a task force that is busy doing all the things that you have to do when you put together a brand new program that doesn't exist in other places. So we are thankful for Gray for his service on that, identifying a need, and then working really hard to bring together something that will serve that need and will benefit our students across the state. By having an online platform, this will be something that our students can participate in regardless of where they're located. Let me give you just a few other stats about some of the programs that are being done through the foundation with the support of the association. You all, a number of you participated in the For All event that we had on March the 1st, answering calls, 6 different sites across the state for members of our public who have legal questions and just want to talk with an attorney to point them in the right direction. So from that event, one of our biggest program events of the foundation, we have answered 6,999 calls. Now, why we couldn't slide one more call in here at 7 o'clock, I am not sure. Mr. Hensley keeps getting that question, but truth in reporting, we had 6,999 calls with approximately 442 volunteers. You've also heard of our Entrepreneurs Assistance Program. This is now being done through a webinar format. As of March 31st this year, we had approximately 300 webinar views for the Entrepreneurs Assistance Program. Our free legal answers is similar to our For All, but it's online, right? Our attorney volunteers open their laptops, they log in, they answer substantive questions that they're comfortable answering. It's been a great program that I think started at the ABA level. Clients served, individuals who've been served as of March 31st this year is about 1,773. Our Lawyers for Literacy program has served approximately 300 students. Through our LGBTQ name change legal clinics, the foundation has served approximately 32 individuals with 3 clinics. I think there are still 2 or 3 other clinics that are scheduled for the remainder of this bar year. Hold on tight, we are a little bit more with our McIntyre Youth Leadership Challenge. Our students registered is about 44 as of March 31st. Middle school mock trial, 92 student competitors through the end of March. With our patent pro bono program, we've had 5 cases through the end of March. Wheels for Heroes, amazing program that's run by our YLD with other members participating. This is the creation of wheels for our firefighters, law enforcement officers, and first responders. Number of individuals served through that program so far has been 168. So more clinics, more individuals involved. So if anybody was doing the math, our grand total of individuals served, again, just through March of this year is just a little less than 10,000 with close to 1,000 volunteers from our association who've shown up for these events. So we're just really proud of all the work that our members are doing and will continue to do for the next couple of months. So you have an opportunity to get plugged in. But before I sit down, I want to make one plug for our annual meeting. I hope that you all have this on your calendar. We will be in, I think it was referred to as the great state of Mecklenburg County on June 20th and the 21st. So we will be in Charlotte this year for our annual meeting. We've been working to schedule candidate forums for this meeting. It is that time, right? So at this point, we are optimistic. I've been told not to say anything more than optimistic, but we are optimistic that we will have an Attorney General candidate forum, and that will be followed by our appellate judicial forums for that meeting. So those are always very informative, well attended. So I hope that you all will join us on June 20th, 21st in Charlotte. During that meeting, we will also have the installation of our new president for the 2024-2025 bar year. And I hope you've had an opportunity to meet and work with Kim Stogner. If you haven't yet, she's amazing. You all will really enjoy working with her. Her installation is 63 days, 9 hours, and about 7 minutes from now. So please join us. It will be a great time of learning, of networking, and we hope to see you in Charlotte.
Thank you, President. We'll now recognize our own Warren Savage, Chair of the LAP Board. Warren.
Madam Vice President, your order's here. You know. Moonlight for DoorDash. Venmo me too. So we had our LAP board meeting yesterday, and I'm only going to say a couple things because more importantly, Candace Hoffman here is going to get up and tell you about what you have in front of yourself and what you can do going forward. Yesterday we had a nice meeting. We had a lot of guests. Most of the folks up here, I think all the folks up here, were there along with several other folks from the State Bar staff. And one of the things we're kind of looking at right now is the we have the privilege of working in firms and in bar environments where if some emergency happens to most of us, we got backup. We got people we can rely on. We got all kinds of people that will make sure that if there's some short-term but very significant thing that happens to us, we'll be able to come back to our practice after checking out for some period of time. But not all our attorneys out there have that privilege. Many of those, in fact, most of those are solo practitioners that don't fit into sort of the categories that get protected, where the public is protected through the trustee program, or even they don't fit into what LAP is charged with. Those folks with mental health problems and substance use issues and all kinds of things like that. That's what they're charged with. But LAP has become also a catch-all for everybody to call, or not everybody, but a lot of folks call and seek their help, which they of course try to do, but the staffing is difficult when it doesn't fit into those categories. So we're looking at brainstorming. That was the purpose of yesterday's meeting, was really just to brainstorm about ways that some of these, when they happen, hopefully they're rare, but when they happen, some of the ways that we can have some procedures for the bar itself, for you as counselors to guide people in how to answer those emergencies when they arise. So that's one of the things we're looking at very hard. LAP, of course, continues to do all the great work it does. They had the Minority Outreach Program back in February, which was an unbelievable event. 450 people, I think, 60 people showed up here in McKimmon Center. It's like an event. I mean, when it's an event with a capital E, it is not just a place to go and get your CLE. They work really hard at it, and it was awesome. And then finally, just put it on your calendar, Matt, after you become president. I think the next weekend after that induction, there will be the annual LAP annual meeting in Asheville, right, coming up. So that's all. I'm not going to go into all the numbers that sometimes I do. Instead, I'm going to invite Candace Hoffman up, who I hope y'all have been. I know you've been introduced to her before by Robin, by me, I hope, and she's going to tell you what you would like for you to do with what you have in front of you, this managing crisis.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Warren. We love having you on our board. So the document you have in front of you is very beautiful. Jennifer Duncan did a great job creating it. I will say before I get into telling you about the document, it does not photocopy or print well if you don't have a color printer, so we have a black and white version. And if you're interested, we can email you that attachment if you want to print it and pass it out. We also have been asked, I think, by a couple people about sending a link to the document, and we are in the process of rebuilding our website So it doesn't have, the link doesn't have anywhere to live right now. When we're done with our website, it will live there. We'll be able to send that link out to you. But this document, it was born out of, a really tragic event that happened a couple of years ago. There was an active shooter event at a law firm. And LAP was on the ground and in the firm within 24 hours and was helping with all of that crisis debrief. And we learned a lot during that experience. And obviously there were a lot of other people involved as well. And the running of a law firm is incredibly complex, and everything, screeches to a halt when you have a crisis event like that. So after that, in the aftermath, Robin really led the charge to meet with a lot of the stakeholders, and I really appreciate everyone's involvement. Our bar leadership, our ethics, Lawyers Mutual, Bar Cares. We all met and had, a series of meetings over the last year and a half, really, to create the document in front of you. And of course, we cannot, predict what's going to happen in any crisis event, but these are some of the few guiding principles and action item steps to try to help streamline the process of getting that attorney and that law firm the best, fastest, easiest help and guidance during that crisis event. And I will say this document was formatted and, really written really simplistically with that audience in mind that has that emotional overwhelm of just experiencing a crisis. And if you look at I won't read the document to you, but on the table of contents, the third page, these are the few kind of first steps we want people to take, not the immediate first steps, but the few things to think about. And each of the items on the table of contents has its own page and has a lot more information. But because there's so much involved in running a law firm, we want people to first reach out to LAP, and I'll talk about that again in a second on the last page, but we can kind of be that communication hub to get information out to the bar and to ethics and to Lawyers Mutual and try to help them, triage that communication. But these are the main things that we learned and that we want people to be able to do in a crisis event. And then if you'll look at the last page, this page is really a standalone page, and we want law firms to have it posted somewhere in the firm that everyone can see it. And then if you'll notice on the bottom of that page, we want, the firm or the workplace to have written where this full document would be, so that, you never know who's going to be involved in that sort of crisis event. So if it is the leadership in the firm, we want other lawyers and staff to be able to access that document. And it has those immediate first steps on it. But definitely reaching out to LAP first. We want to, almost every occasion, be able to get in the firm and be on the ground and start to help with that process. And really the reason that we wanted to make sure to give it to all of you, and there's going to be a meeting in September for the district bar presidents, and they're going to get this document too, is that you're the bar counselors and the leaders in your community, and you're likely going to be one of the first people called. And hopefully it never happens in your community, but if it does, we want you guys to know what document we're using as really our guidance, and to be able to reach out to us too, to help. And we're also going to be giving this document, it's going to live on our website, but we're going to be presenting it to the law firm administrators, and to the paralegal specialization group. A lot of those paralegals end up serving like office managers in smaller firms. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Robin if you want copies of that black and white document. And I really want to thank everybody who put a lot of hard time and work in over the past year and a half to create this. I think it's going to be really helpful in the future. Thank y'all.
Thanks for that report. Moving right along, we'll now hear from our General Counsel, Carmen Banner, with the litigation report.
Good morning, everyone. The report of the activities of the Office of Counsel for the first quarter are in your materials. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the tender of the surrender of a law license of meaning, I'll skip the middle name, Rankin, and let Jessica pronounce it correctly. Let Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You have in your materials an affidavit of surrender of law license from Mimi Rankin. I've reviewed the affidavit and determined that it satisfies the requirements of Rule 121A of the State Bar's Discipline and Disability Rules. For Ms. Rankin, I request that the council enter an order accepting the affidavit, disbarring her and taxing her with the applicable costs and administrative fees.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to accept the surrender of the license as proposed and to enter an order of disbarment. Do I hear such a motion? So I have a second.
Second.
All in, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We will now hear a report on the Legislative Review Committee from past President Marcy Armstrong. Marcy?
Morning. I know that everybody is this on here? Okay. Everybody's heard about this committee now for all the other various committees. You've attended meetings this week. But in 2023, 2024 budget, the bill included legislation authorizing the appointment of a 7-member State Bar Review Committee to examine the rules and procedures governing the State Bar's disciplinary process. The co-chairs of that committee were North Carolina lawyers, Larry Shaheen, who's from, I believe, the Charlotte area, and then Woody White from Wilmington. The Chief Justice had 3 appointments to that committee, and he appointed Justice Tamara Behringer, Valerie Zachary, and the former AOC Director Andrew Heath to serve on that committee. The governor's appointment to that committee was our past president, Colin Willoughby, and then yours truly was in, I don't know if it was by accident or what, but anyway, I was the other member appointed out of legislation to this committee. And so it was the committee's job was to submit a report containing any recommendations to the Legislative Oversight Committee, and we had to do that by April the 1st of 2024. So between January 24 and March 14, this committee met 5 times, and the report was submitted on time as required. I've asked Peter if he would put a link to the full report in the agenda, and I'm assuming he did that because he always does what I ask him to do. Thank you, Peter. And so there is for your pleasure in your reading, and I'm not going to go through all of the report in its entirety. I do want to say that this was a collaborative effort. I want to give a thank you to the co-chairs of this committee for their willingness to speak to all the various stakeholders. Prior to the very first committee meeting, Mr. White had met with me. He had also met with Carmen and Peter, as well as attorneys that typically represent respondents in these matters, and he was very open and willing to talk with anybody and meet with anybody, and for that we were very appreciative. I think it set the tone of this committee, which I consider to have been a very productive process. And I really do want to thank Carmen, you, and Brian and Peter for all of your extra efforts and those others that helped you. And the time, you just don't know how many hours we spent. I'm not sure that Carmen got to go home very much. I don't know, she probably had all her changes of clothes here in her office. And she just really put in a tremendous amount of time, and I will tell you, she did the State Bar proud as the face of the Office of Counsel, and we should be forever indebted to her for that. And thank you. So there were several, there were actually 5 recommendations that were ultimately included in the report. One, to pass legislation that would provide the respondent attorneys with equitable access to evidence and proceedings in the grievance matters. As you know, at this time, respondents do not have an opportunity to present or make remarks either themselves or through their lawyers at the grievance subcommittee level. So that is something that may change in the future. That is definitely one of the recommendations. Passing legislation that restrains vexatious complainants who file excessive numbers of meritless and frivolous complaints, and that is a very much welcomed change by the Office of Counsel. They need to spend their time and resources really dealing with more serious matters, and so that is a welcome change, I do believe. Pass legislation that would establish standing requirements for filing a complaint, so that you have to either be a victim to file a complaint against a lawyer or an agent, or the state bar, obviously. So again, that I believe would be a good change. I think that the committee believes it would be a good change, and again, I think that the Office of Counsel. And I will say, I need to, before I go any further, so I know that Brian and Peter and Carmen met with, again, Alice Schneider and Josh Walthall and other lawyers that typically defend lawyers in these cases. And they spent hours together, and they developed a working paper, for lack of a better word, but a list of ideas that they collaboratively agreed would be good changes to help our process. And I'm also proud to say that document actually is made it as part of it's one of the exhibits to the final committee report. So it just shows what happens when you can get all the stakeholders in a room and come up with some really great ideas and work together. As far as other recommendations, there's the state bar is going to be directed, and again, all of this has to be put into a bill, so we're kind of waiting for that to come out. But the state bar will have to engage in rulemaking for expungement of certain types of low-level disciplinary, past misconduct. Again, with the low-level, there would be specific procedures, and that the state bar would be tasked with those rulemaking. And then there was a discussion in this committee about the DHC. There was discussion about the makeup, how to go about selecting the members of the DHC. There were no specific recommendations except to continue to talk about it and to discuss it. One of the ideas I really liked, I think all the committee members liked, and I believe everybody liked, was the possibility of having a retired judge that would preside over these hearings, not just the hearings, but any pretrial motions as well as the hearing itself. Because a lot of the lawyers that serve and give their time to serve on DHC have never been not trial lawyers. So that was I think that would be a welcome change. Would require funding, so again, that's something that the legislature would have to do. So anyway, it was a great process. Every committee member acknowledged at the beginning that the Polar Star really is protection of the public, and that's what the state bar's mission is. But at the same time, making sure that we do give the respondents, the lawyers that are before the state bar, the opportunity to be heard and to feel that they were treated fairly as well. And they're not inconsistent. We can do both. So if you have any questions, you can see me afterwards. I know this is a long agenda, but thank you for giving me a moment, President Brown.
Thank you, Marcy. I'll now move, hopefully expeditiously, through the committee reports, but I don't want to cut off any questions or debate if we should find that necessary. I'll start with the executive committee report. First, the executive committee recommends to the council the approval of the minutes of its meeting on January 19, 2024, and call for a motion from the executive committee, which needs to be second. So we'll call for a vote, but first, any discussions, questions about those minutes, corrections? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. I will now recognize President-elect Matt Smith to present the recommendations of the executive committee relative to matters from finance and audit and the appointments advisory committee. Matt.
Thank you, Mr. President. These are all recommendations of the Finance and Audit Committee. The first motion, Mr. President, would be to approve the audit of the 2023 audit of State Board's financial statements. Those are in your materials. Happy to pretend to answer questions on that.
That motion requires no second. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right.
Next motion would be to approve the first quarter financial statements from 2024. Those are also in the materials, and happy to answer any questions on those.
Motion requires no second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Next item will be a motion to approve the addition of $30,474 to the 2024 capital expenses budget for the purpose of office furniture for 2 new employees.
Requires no second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Next item is a motion to amend the investment policy of the council to specify the 2 governing statutes on investment of the funds of a state agency. Happy to answer any questions on that matter.
No second being required. Any questions for Matt? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes.
Switch up. Moving on to the Appointments Advisory Committee. First off, with the Disciplinary Hearing Commission, first off, we have a motion to reappoint William Oden to a 3-year term. I'll do all 3 of these the same. Motion to a 3-year term, appoint Catherine Constantino and Katie King of Raleigh to 3-year terms on the commission beginning July 1st of 2024.
And we are going to take those as a group unless there is an objection. That motion requires no second. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes.
Next, we have a motion to appoint Jay Myers to a 3-year term as Vice Chair of the Commission beginning July 1st, 2024.
No second being required. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Next item is the NC Leaf Board. I'm going to split this up into 2 motions, Mr. President. First off, they changed their bylaws, so we need to comply with their bylaws. First, I would make a motion to terminate the 1-year terms of William R. Purcell and James R. Grant effective June 30, 2024.
Requires no second. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
We would then make a motion to appoint Mr. Purcell and Mr. Grant to 3-year terms beginning July 1st, 2024.
Motion requires no second. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That passes.
That is my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President-elect. Proceed with the remainder of the Executive Committee report. The next matter will be a motion to publish proposed rule amendments. The first, and I will take these together unless there is an objection or request that I consider them separately. So the first is 4.1 relates to rule amendments that create a process for members to transfer directly from administrative suspension status to inactive status. That's Rule 4.1 in our materials, agenda item 4.1. And the second is proposed amendments to the disciplinary rules on the trust account compliance program and random audit program. And those amendments facilitate the referral of grievances to the TAC program and the referral of employees who fail a random audit to participate in the TAC program. That is the motion. That requires no second. Any questions? All in favor? Speak up. Opposed? That passes. All right, now we'll proceed with the recognition of the committee chairs to give their reports, starting first with the Access to Justice report. Vice President Catherine Brock. It's not on, but use this one here. It's not on. Peter. You should be on. Peter wants it, so.
So I don't need to yell? We did two things on Wednesday. We talked about one long-term way to resolve access to justice, which is through participation in the mock trial program. You heard Justice Newby talk about civic education. It's a way to get interest in high school students so that they will be interested in being lawyers and then hopefully coming back to the areas that they went to high school. Rebecca Britton gave us an excellent presentation on that. The second piece of work is our editing or our edits to Rule 16 to create unbundled legal services. It's in the final process of sort of being put in the right form by the Supreme Court. So that will come out soon. Once that is finalized, we'll be passing on that information so that you can make sure to spread the word among other lawyers and judges about what that process is now to allow attorneys to be able to get in and out of cases and be cost effective for individuals who want to use them. So that was the work of the Access to Justice Committee, and we have no action items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. We got two. Peter, I hope you're catching me, Peter. I got two. We'll now hear from Robert Rader, Chair of the Administrative Committee.
Good morning. The Administrative Committee met on Wednesday morning and took the following actions in the form of recommendations to the council. The committee heard 62 petitions for transfer to inactive status. Those were approved, 4 were granted upon satisfying certain requirements, and 1 was granted inactive status immediately after seeking reinstatement. We had 3 petitions for emeritus pro bono status for inactive members. All 3 of those were granted. We had 14 lawyers who had filed petitions for reinstatement from an inactive status. Those were approved. 3 were granted upon the condition of satisfying certain requirements. We had 1 petition for reinstatement from suspended status, and that was granted, and they immediately sought inactive status, which was also granted. We had 8 petitions for pro bono practice by out-of-state lawyers. Those were approved with the exception of 1. We had 1 request for reconsideration on a petition that had been heard previously in October and denied. That request for reconsideration was heard and was again denied. That particular lawyer does not hold a license in any state presently. There was 1 proposed rule amendment, which President Brown spoke to earlier, proposed amendment to Rule 1D, Section 901, which is transfer to inactive status, and that the purpose of that is really to streamline the process for those lawyers who want to transfer directly from an administrative suspension to inactive status. And we find that a lot of times this is a case with older attorneys who have retired, who are suddenly in an administrative suspension status. They just want to go inactive. So it streamlines that process. And then while we were at it, we updated the requirements for transfer from active to inactive in that section of the code to make it consistent with the statute. So we've already approved that for publication. Thanks to Peter for his work on that amendment. There were 42 lawyers were approved for issuance of suspension orders for failure to comply. In your materials on page 27, there is the suspension list, which you're used to seeing. It's a rather small list. And I know it's customary for us to review that list, and if we see a name on there that we recognize, we reach out to see if there's anything we can do to help them come in compliance. Tammy Jackson, who staffs our committee, wanted to make sure that everyone understood that most of the members whose names appear on that suspension list have actually been sort of MIA for several years, and their notice to show cause had to be served by publication in the Bar Journal. So the contact information that's listed there, I think there's a phone number with each name that may or may not be accurate. But if you do see a name on there and you know how to contact that person, that would be a good thing. If they have questions, just tell them, feel free to call staff, call the CLE office or the membership offices and speak with Kelly Beck. That is the report of the administrative committee, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We shall now move to hear.
You need to
vote on this.
You need to
Sorry, Peter. We'll now hear from. We need to vote on that report. We need to vote on this. All right. We need a motion to accept the administrative committee's report. I apologize for my omission. That comes from a committee, so it doesn't need a second, or does it need a second, Alice? I don't think so. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Thank you. Now we shall hear from the Authorized Practice Committee Chair, Bobby Bowers. Bobby, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Good morning, folks. The Authorized Practice Committee met the other morning. We had 7 action items that resulted in 4 letters of caution that will be issued in the near future. There were 3 matters dismissed, and as always, we're greatly appreciative of the work of the staff council. Thank you, Tessa, Liza, and Lori in particular. That's my report. No action items today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No further action, right, Alice? Thank you, Bob. We shall now hear from the Vice Chair of the Communications Committee, Darrell Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Darrell Davidson. This is my 2nd term as State Bar Counselor, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Communications Committee. And I'll tell you what's something funny. I was sitting back there and I saw my name. Surprise, but that's okay. I love talking anyway. We met as a communications committee, and the development that we had, there are 2 new staff members. One is Ashley Ratliff, she's the agency attorney, and the second one is Philip Kulzewski. Now, if anybody knows me, I'm bad with names unless you owe me something. Then I'll remember your name. But that is the only thing that happened in the Communications Committee, and thank you, Mr. President, and happy Friday.
Thank you. We now hear from Judge Dorothy Harrison Mitchell, Chair of the Ethics Committee. Judge.
Mr. President, good morning, everybody. I like that report. All right, Ethics Committee, we met on yesterday. We used all of our time, as I reported yesterday, about 5 minutes shy of the time that was allotted to us yesterday. We dealt with 8 total inquiries, 3 new ones for this quarter, 5 returning. We do have 1 that we're sending back to republish and publishing 1 new opinion. We do not have any action items this morning, but I would ask if I could take 1 moment, point of privilege.
Certainly, you may.
All right, I just want to say thank you, President Brown, and to George for that awesome presentation of that Distinguished Service Award for Judge Fulton. I was so glad to see her family here today. The reason why I want to say thank you, 1, because it happened here and I was able to be here for it. To hear that, it was so inspiring to me. I know it inspired so many more of you all too. But especially because this is online, and this will be a presentation that folks will be able to go back and see. Judge Fulton's reach, George, was well beyond Charlotte, North Carolina. And she, as a woman of color, a judge of color, we stand on her shoulders, just like we stand on the shoulders of Judge Hennig. And so I just am so appreciative of that presentation taking place here, and that is been able to be recorded here today, and folks will be able to see that across the state and even nationally, because it is so important to have persons of color and just good people like her. And I hate that she wasn't able to receive that award herself, but I'm so grateful that her family was able to be here and that we were able to give that to her, and that we were able to capture that in a recording. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Yes, sir.
Now we'll hear from the Grievance Committee Chair, Kevin Williams. Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy Friday, and I would also like to echo what Judge Harrison Mitchell said about the presentation. I thought having a presentation here at the full council meeting was fantastic, so thanks for those who arranged that. The Grievance Committee has been, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, hard at work for the past quarter. We considered 277 files this quarter, 242 of which were dismissed. The committee deferred disposition of 3 files. We referred 8 files to the DHC, referral of 5 lawyers to the Trust Accounting Compliance Program, dismissed 5 files with letters of caution, dismissed 5 files with letters of warning, issued a reprimand in 1 file, and a censure in 4 files. In addition to that, I would just like to note, for those of you who were on the Grievance Committee or were in the Executive Committee, you heard the presentation from Carmen about some of the work that's been going on at the State Bar this quarter, dealing with several issues, including the backlog of files, the intake process, and how we deal with dismissals. And so in addition to all the files that you just heard that were worked up and were dismissed during the quarter, there was additional work being done to gain some efficiencies. And so kudos to Carmen and the staff who worked on that. As always, I'd like to just say thank you to Heather Ruth for keeping the Grievance Committee trains running on time, and to Walter Brock, Andre Capua, and Gordon Brown for their agreement to chair the subcommittees. So that's our report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now hear from the Issues Committee, Past President Marcy Armstrong. Floor is yours.
Before I do that, Caroline asked me to request you guys let her know, if you haven't already, which of the summer social activities that you would like to participate in, because she's trying to make sure we have enough facilities and we can take care of everybody. So please let her know if you can before you leave today, and if you forget to do that or don't see her, please email her on Monday, just to let her know. And we do appreciate all of her hard work trying to get all those activities together. So the Issues Committee met this week, and we heard from Walter Brock and his subcommittee studying deferral programs. And their subcommittee recommended that there be rule changes to implement a new department, basically, where the TAC program and the random audit program would become one division or department within the State Bar, and you've already this morning passed the rules to implement that. But the notion or idea being that for technical violations of the trust accounting rules, instead of opening grievance files, there would be more education in trying to, and there are steps that you have to take to be part of that program, but to help educate and not have as many sent to grievance. So that was one report. The other report was the implementation of succession planning. We've heard about that before. There is now on every attorney's portal a form where you can designate who you would like to be your trustee if something were to happen to you. And this kind of goes hand in glove with what Candace had to say this morning about things happening that you can't anticipate. So I would really love for all of you to take this back to your local bar association meetings and let everybody know about it. It takes 5 minutes. It does not take long to do that. And just really try to spread the word about that. I think there's going to be an e-blast that goes out from the State Bar as well about this, but critically important, and that's the report for the issues.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll now hear from Lee Bachman, Chair of the LAMP Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The LAMP committee met yesterday afternoon about 4 o'clock while the rest of y'all were getting ready for the picnic. There were a few of us who are there, and we also have quite a few members who actually are members of the council who serve with us. We heard a couple great reports from Camp Lejeune, what's going on with Marine Corps Base, and also with Pope Army Airfield. And we had some very exciting news. One of our members, who's not a member of council but is appointed to serve on our committee, Ruth Cresno, actually received the ABA LAMP Committee Distinguished Service Award, and so we're very excited about that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your report. You did good work. All right. Now we shall hear once again from Chair of the Distinguished Service Committee, Warren Savage. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right. But before we start, I do want to thank George today for verbalizing about the best description of what it means to be on the Distinguished Service Committee. It's a real honor, and what the award is about. It was awesome. I also want to thank Todd. We had not just for today, I was going to thank Todd because we had a great presentation from Ted Edwards of the DSA award, and he also, it was a moving and awesome presentation in front of an august body. Oh my gosh, there were so many people there, and Ted was very moved, I think, and I was too. And also Alan Cobb was part of, along with Todd, and I think Marcy was there, of a presentation in Wilmington to Wanda Coakley that was put together by the county commissioners who love her to death, from what I understand. And Alan said that. In fact, I was on the front page of the new North Carolina Lawyers Weekly this week, so that should tell you something about what that meant to the community down there. It's just such a great program. I also like to thank Suzanne Suzanne Labor for everything she does for our committee. We do have 2 upcoming presentations. Suzanne, thank you so much. We have 2 upcoming presentations. Jim Dorsett is going to be getting presented the Distinguished Service Award here in this building during a ceremony on May 8th. That's being sponsored by his firm, Smith Anderson. So all you Wake County folks and anybody else who can come, please come. I can tell you it means a whole lot to these folks when representatives of the state bar show up. And then Bert Kemp will be getting the award coming up at Christmas at the Pitt County Christmas Party, which I plan to be at because I went last year when Charles Hardy got it, and man, that's a fun party. At this time, I would like to, before we go into closed council, let me remind you of the purpose of going into closed session. That things that we vote on don't escape the room until it's announced, okay? Thank you very much. At this moment, I would like to move your honor to go into closed session under General Statute 143-318.11A2 to prevent the premature disclosure of an honorary degree, scholarship, prize, or similar award.
Thank you for that motion. It does require a second, so do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to advise that that this committee is moving with the approval of the executive committee yesterday that the council approve the nominations of the lawyer A and candidate B in closed session for presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award, subject to our standard due diligence checks.
And that is a motion. Coming from the committee requires no second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That passes. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Is there any further business to come before this council? All right, now just make it, it should be obvious. The mugs in front of you are just coffee mugs as a token of our gratitude for your service. We can't do it so much. But I have used them and they are great, so please feel free to take one that's in front of you. And with that, the chair will entertain a motion.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.
Safe travels.